Results, and we had a really good turnout over that. Actually, over 200 students responded to that survey, so we're excited about sharing those results with you. But first, we just want to kind of get everybody on the same page in terms of where we are and what we're doing. So this is our agenda. We're going to have a welcome in a second here from our dean and our associate dean. We're going to talk about why we are here and why we're doing DEI work and why it's so important. We're going to have a business case of one of our distinguished emeritus professors, Dr. Sauer here. And we're so excited to have our student body president, Ms. Bonds. Ms. Bonds is here with us. And then I'll be doing an overview of our DEI work, and then we'll go over our survey, and then we'll have a little bit of a question and answer time. So if our dean and our associate dean can come up, that would be great.
Thank you, Dr. Simmons. Welcome, everyone. It is indeed an extreme honor to have you here at our inaugural College of Business Administration DEI Student Town Hall. Let me quickly introduce one of the key cogs in the College of Business Administration, Dr. Gina Brynildsen, Associate Dean, to also give some welcoming comments.
Thank you for that. Welcome, everyone. I really, really appreciate that you all took the time out of your schedules to be here today, because this is an important effort. And many of you are familiar with the College of Business Administration's mission, with our core values. And so when we talk about things like individuality, respect, honesty, quality, all of those core values tie right into this DEI work that Dr. Simmons, along with her esteemed colleagues, are working on. When we talk about our mission, we have a student-focused learning environment. We're trying to develop business professionals. And we do that inside of the classroom, but also outside of the classroom, doing things like this. And so I just want to emphasize that point, that these efforts are very important. They tie into the college's mission, our core values, and our vision, and you all are a part of that. And so thank you for coming to hear about the details of this work. It's important.
I have been involved in higher education, initially as a student, as a faculty member, then as an administrator, since the mid-1970s, so over 5 decades. And I've had the pleasure of seeing generation after generation of college students. And one thing sets apart this current generation of students, and that is, in my professional opinion, your generation is the most caring and nurturing generation with which I've had the pleasure to work. Now that provides opportunities which lend itself to the importance of DEI efforts. As a society, we have issues. As a society, we have finally gotten to a stage, in my opinion, where we can have intelligent, collegial conversations of where we have succeeded and where we have fallen short and where we hope to make improvements. For that to work, we need people to care. And your generation cares. So these DEI efforts helps to build upon that. And we want all of our stakeholders, and among the important stakeholders are you, our students, to be involved in the discussions, to raise awareness levels, to look for solutions in a respectful manner, to recognize, as Dean represented, that we have individuals with different perspectives. So how do we learn from each other? How do we move forward to make our society a better place? And that, in a nutshell, is what we're trying to accomplish. Dean Robinson, anything you'd like to add?
No, I agree with all of that. The only thing I would add is, again, keep in mind, part of the efforts of this work, we want students to feel that every single one of you is valued. We have an environment that fosters inclusivity, and that you're able to share your opinions, you're able to share your viewpoints in a way that is respectful and have them received respectfully. And so that's part of what we're doing here today, and I'll let Dean Newsom introduce the members that are involved on this committee.
As we move forward, this is going to be a team effort. Within the college, we've created a diversity, equity, and inclusive task force that is putting forth programming and efforts to gather information and provide forums to share information. And then as we move forward beyond that, we need all our stakeholders involved. Let me just give you the names of the members of the task force, which is going to be chaired by our Interim Director of DEI, Dr. Aneika Simmons. So if you would please stand. And as I mentioned the names, not everyone could be here at this time, some will have conflicts, but I am going to still read the names of all members of the task force in alphabetical order. Starting with our student body president, Ms. LaYauna Bonds, Dr. Gina Brynildsen, Ms. Julie Campbell, Dr. Mandy Duan, Dr. Oscar Harvin, Dr. Cassy Henderson, Dr. Tiffany Maldonado, and Dr. Strawser. Can we give everyone a hand for their willingness to participate? With that said, let me turn it over to Dr. Simmons and her team to introduce our guest speaker.
Yeah, so when I came to Sam Houston almost 15 years ago, there were some people who stood out as just models, people that you want to kind of mimic their behavior, how they treat people, the kindness and hard work ethic. And one of those people is Dr. Sauer. And I've kept in touch with him over the years, and he's helped me through some small decisions and some larger decisions. So it's my honor to welcome him back to give us a discussion on the business case for DEI. And later you'll see we have an internal group working on diversity, equity, inclusion, and an advisory group, which is external to the college, and he is a part of that advisory group. Dr. Sauer?
Thank you, Dr. Simmons. I assure you that I've learned as much from you as you say that you've learned from me. You're a role model to me too in many ways. I'm not going to talk to you today from a perspective of a professor, although I did do some research to see what has been written about diversity, equity, and inclusion. But I'm going to draw upon the first half of my career, which was in the real world, and before I got into the academic world, I ran a company. Then I spent 20 years here at the university, and during that entire period of time, I've also done consulting. So I reached out to contacts in the business world at the upper levels, VP and up levels, in large corporations that I've worked with in the past, asking them about their, and I'm going to use the term D&I, not DEI, and I'm not taking equity out of this, but all of the people that I talk to in the business world refer to their programs as D&I programs, diversity and inclusion programs. So I'm going to use that term simply because they do. And I'm going to draw upon the information that they provided to me and some of the consulting experience that I had to talk to you about this topic. How many of you have an idea about diversity and improvement programs in business? Why do you think a business might decide to implement D&I? And to preface that, everybody I talk to say, yeah, we've got one of those. Why do you think they do? Why do they have one of those? Yes?
Businesses and the nature of business itself is going more global, so you're going to be interacting with a more widely diverse culture palette than what you're used to. And so having a diversity and inclusion type style operation in your business will help ease your transition into other areas.
Okay, so having a more diverse organization facilitates your interacting in the global environment with a diverse clientele, not only your customers, but also suppliers and everybody else that you might interact with. Yeah, some businesses do that. And that would be from a, profitability standpoint. We do it because it's in our best interest to do that from a
Kind of
profitability.
like a profitability, like operational logistics standpoint.
Okay, it makes it easier for us to operate to do that. Okay, why else might a business implement a D&I program? Well, some of them didn't actually put it this way. Some said, everybody else is doing it, we got to do it too. And we'll talk about maybe, is that an effective approach or not? Others say they provided ethical and moral arguments. It's the right thing to do. As Denzel Washington famously said, do the right thing. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to do the right things. Moral and ethical arguments for that. And financial arguments. We'll talk about some of the research that says more diverse organizations are more profitable. So it's in our self-interest to do that. But there's a wide variety of reasons why corporations, organizations of all kinds have a D&I program, and we're going to talk about some of that. Okay, do you think that any organization can implement a D&I program effectively without change? I can't tell you how many times I've worked with organizations and they say, we want you to fix this, but don't change anything. We like it just the way it is. So, you know, that's kind of odd. In order to fix this, we're going to have to change something. And in order to become more diverse and inclusive, we're going to have to change some things. If we don't, it's not going to work. So, one of the things I'm going to talk about is change management, your obligation to become involved early in your careers in the changes necessary to increase the diversity and inclusion in organizations. Starting right here. And we have some leadership here who's working in that area, and I'm very proud to hear that. Okay, so we're talking about improving the organizations you'll be working for through diversity and improvement, and inclusion, I'm sorry. Are you preparing yourselves to be leaders? I know you're preparing yourselves to be accountants, marketing people, physicists, whatever your major happens to be. But you're also preparing yourselves to be change agents, people who are going to go out there and initiate change. Is that something you've actually thought about, that you're going to do that? If you haven't, this is something you should think about. Are you going to be content to sit on the sidelines and watch change happen? Or do you want to be part of the organization that creates the change necessary to make improvements, particularly in diversity and inclusion? You need to consider that, and you need to prepare for that if you indeed want to be part of that. You don't have to start from scratch, and you don't have to wait until you're CEO of the organization. There are ways that you can have power, even if you don't have positional power. And we'll talk a little bit about that in the business case, by the way, is one way to do that. There are books written. I've written a book on change. How do you create change when you're lower down in the organization, like the CEO? Many other people have written similar books like that. There are articles out there. All you need to do is spend about 15 minutes online or in the library, and you have a good basis for what you need to do in order to be a positive influence on the changes necessary to make D&I work in business. And the case for diversity and inclusion can be made based on ethical and moral grounds. That is the golden rule. Denzel Washington's do the right thing. Legal grounds, starting with the Declaration of Independence, that starts by saying we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all people are created equal, that they're endowed with their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And then we have all the legislation out there, equal rights legislation, civil rights legislation, all the legal background that we need, all the legal impetus we need to create more diversity and inclusion. But that's not my task. My task is not to take on those arguments for diversity and inclusion. Mine is to take on the business case for diversity and inclusion. Can we make a business case for that? Now, each of you will hear what I have to say and what the other speakers have to say and hear different things. You're not going to hear me with the same ears as everybody else in the room. And that's okay. Not only is that okay, but that's essential. Because it's the differences among us that help me make the business case for diversity and inclusion. If all of us heard and thought about things and saw things in exactly the same way, it would be much more difficult for me to make a business case for diversity and inclusion. Whenever businesses are faced with a major decision, they typically begin by writing the business case for that. I know I would never have any of my R&D or engineering people come to me and say, hey, we need to do this. I say, where's the business case? Oh, well, I'll get back to you. Okay, well, come see me when you got it. I want to see the business case. So what is a business case? It's where we look at the outcomes that we anticipate receiving as a result of implementing whatever it is in the business case that we want to do. So in the case of diversity and inclusion, if we're going to begin a program there, what are the outcomes that we anticipate receiving? So, and are those consistent with our strategic plan? Are they consistent with who we want to be as an organization, where we want to go as an organization? And then we look at what are the inputs that are going to be required to achieve this. And do the outcomes exceed the inputs that we need to have? Generally, businesses don't do things that don't have a positive return on investment. So if we're going to put these inputs in, we need to be able to get some outcomes that exceed the value of those inputs. So we write the business case. So I consult not in the D&I space, I consult in the quality, operations management, supply chain areas. I don't consult in the human resource areas, marketing, I don't consult in those areas. But I get to see a lot of what's going on in business and begin to understand that. One of the concepts I use when I consult with businesses, certainly if the work that I'm doing involves increasing creativity and innovation within the business, and I'm not alone in doing this, many other researchers use this too. It's the concept of multiple lenses. The basis for multiple lenses is that each of us have our own individual lens through which we see everything in the world. And not just see, all of our senses are incorporated in this lens. We just use the lens as kind of a metaphor for the filter through which everything comes into our being, our understanding. And I didn't have to wear these when I was a professor. It's only after I've gotten a little bit older that I've needed to put these on. And you guys are blurry, but what I have up here is not blurry. So my lenses aren't quite as sharp as they were when I was here. So let's use some stereotypes, which is not always a bad term, to understand this concept of multiple lenses. Based on education, for example, accounting professionals tend to focus on numbers, the bottom line. Human resource professionals tend to focus on people. Operations professionals tend to focus on processes and technologies. Engineers tend to focus on science and technology. Philosophers tend to focus on ideals. Indeed, your professors, when you take a human resource class, Dr. Simmons is trying to create your human resource lens so that not only do you understand the textbook material in the course, but you begin to look at life through a human resource lens. And when you take Dr. Strawser's class in accounting, he's putting your accounting lens on there. He wants you to look at the world through the accounting lens. Each of your faculty members are actively trying to help you do that. So that when you leave here, you have a variety of lenses that you can interchange as necessary in order to understand problems that you encounter. Variations in our lenses can be a source of disruption and conflict. I can't tell you how many times the engineering and operations people butted heads with the accounting people in my organization. They simply could not reach a consensus decision on problems that they faced. Now, my job as a top manager was to help them reach a consensus. And one of the tools is multiple lenses. And I would do this. Say, okay, Dr. Strawser, take off your accounting lenses and put on the operations lens. And Sauer, you take off your operations lens and put on the accounting lens. Look at the same problem that you've been looking at, but you make the case for the other side, so that you gain the perspective. How is the other person that I'm talking with and dealing with seeing this situation? I now have a better understanding. And that generally leads to a resolution to the conflict. That conflict started out and is essential and can be turned into something productive if managed correctly. As you progress through the ranks, you need to develop your own ability to see problems through more than one lens. You look at it this way, you move over here, put on a different set of lenses, look at it like this, move over here and look at it this way and see it like this. That gives you multiple perspectives on the problem and allows you to come up with a better resolution. Now, within these generalized stereotypical categories of lenses, there are individual variations that are based on things like life experiences, culture, ethnicity, race, gender, religion, all sorts of other things. So all accountants don't see things through the same accounting lens. Their lens is adapted based on all of these other factors. So each person has their own unique lens. Not all of us operations people see the world in exactly the same way. We have our own unique way of looking at that. By creating diverse teams, greater insight is obtained because there are multiple team members observing the same thing through their own lens. One person might see something that no other person in the room sees. They totally miss it. Therefore, research has shown if you want to develop better and more creative solutions to problems, create better strategies, and better leverage opportunities, assigning the problem to a very diverse team is the way to go. If we hire and promote only those whose lenses are similar to our own, we miss the synergies that can develop when there's increased diversity in our organization. And the research says we'll be less creative and less innovative. I worked as a consultant with a major corporation to develop programs for increasing creativity and innovation. We use the multiple lens approach with an emphasis on creating teams that are as diverse as possible, so that the opportunities, problems, and ideas can be viewed from as many different perspectives as possible. The company loved the approach and reported that many new innovative ideas resulted from the program we helped them create. This is an argument for DEI. Increased diversity results in synergies created by teams looking at problems and solutions through multiple lenses, which will result in better decisions and better outcomes. But is there proof for that argument, or is this purely theoretical? I submit that there's proof for this argument. An article published by the World Economic Forum makes the case that diversity is about more than gender, race, and ethnicity. It now includes employees with diverse religious and political beliefs, education, socioeconomic backgrounds, sexual orientation, cultures, and even disabilities. And I would like to add, although it wasn't listed there, age is another factor there, for obvious reasons. So the article cites a Boston Consulting Group study that found that companies with more diverse leadership teams report 19% higher revenues due to innovation. 19% higher revenues due to innovation. Got a business case to be built around increased diversity, improving profitability through increased innovation? I submit that it can. The article also cites the 2018 Hayes Asia Diversity and Inclusion Report, which found that respondents to their survey reported improved company culture, leadership, and greater innovation as the top 3 benefits of diversity. Think about that. Company culture is improved, leadership is improved, and greater innovation is improved because of the greater diversity within the organization. By 2025, 75% of the workforce will be millennials. 75% millennials. That's just what, 3 years away? 4 years away. Almost 4 years away. Dr. Musan is correcting my math there. Okay. 47% of millennials indicate they actively look for diversity in the workplace as part of their interviewing process. 47%. So half of the 75% are making decisions about whether or not they're going to accept a job, or maybe perhaps even interview with you, based on how diverse your organization is. What are the implications for hiring and retention? Can a business case be built around increased D&I, decreasing hiring and turnover costs? I submit that it can. Additional evidence for creating a business case for diversity comes from the McKinsey & Company 2015 report that cited in a SHRM article, SHRM, Society for Human Resource Management, that companies in the top quartile for gender or racial and ethnic diversity were more likely to have financial returns above their national industry average, median, which is an average. Okay, so there's the research about that. And we have some ideas now about how we can look at what are the outcomes that we can expect. How can we justify putting money and effort into a D&I program? We now have some ideas of what those outcomes could be. The Sherm article also makes the point that in order for D&I to be successful, it must be a top-to-bottom business strategy and not just a human resource program or initiative. Apologies, Dr. Simmons. Training alone is not sufficient to make a D&I program successful. Training must be coupled with direct experience and examples which show the value of deliberately considering membership diversity when creating teams and task forces, and indeed hiring individuals to work in the organization. Now, every organization has a strategic plan. That plan is carefully put together, a lot of time is put into it, this is what we want to do. Fewer organizations have a plan to deploy that strategic plan. So they create a strategic plan, and it sits on a shelf, and it's not deployed. It's not actually integrated into what we're doing as an organization. The same is true of D&I programs. Simply having a D&I program is not sufficient for success. I interviewed a top executive at a large corporation in the Houston area about their D&I program. The executive told me they were about a year into the program, and so far the results were disappointing. The main difference this executive saw, and he was not in human resource. He was in the operations area. My contacts tend to be in the operations area, as you might imagine. The main difference that he saw was that each division was being examined for the degree of diversity, and that diversity goals were being established and current levels of diversity were insufficient. Now, this approach is likely to increase diversity and inclusion in the program, I grant that. But unless it is followed up with organizational-wide cultural change to take advantage of that diversity and inclusion, it's unlikely to achieve the outcomes used in the business case that justify its creation. So, when working to change the culture, you must be concerned with preserving the positive cultural values of the organization, for example, integrity, dependability, teamwork, customer focus. You want to preserve those, but you can't simply leave the rest of the culture intact and expect that a program, the D&I program, is going to be effective. You have to change that culture. Let me give you an example. This is a silly example, but I learned best by putting my hands on things and seeing things. Look at my organization here. These are the people in my organization. Notice they all have roughly the same shape, nice and smooth, roundish in appearance and that. This is my organization, lacks diversity. Now I want to increase diversity in my organization, so I actively work to hire people who look different, and to think differently, and act differently. So I start bringing in new people to the organization that clearly aren't roundish and smooth. They have rough edges, they're porous, they have projections up here. Now, organizations, in my experience, have two approaches to integrating these people into the organization. One is to take each one, knock off all the bumps, fill in all the blemishes, make them round and smooth so that they look just like all the other people in the organization. But more importantly, they think like all the other people in the organization. We lose all the value of diversity and inclusion. We lose all the value of having diverse opinions, insights, lenses being brought to bear on problems and opportunities within an organization if we do that. Other organizations say, okay, it's a good thing to have diversity of thought. So what we're going to do is we're going to imbue in them the cultural values we consider to be primary for us. That's the value of teamwork, customer focus, dependability, integrity. We imbue in them those, but we allow them to look at the world through other lenses, and we respect that opinion. We bring it in and we integrate that with all the other discussions we have in the organization. And who knows, we may find that one of these individuals has gold. That's not real gold. Bear with me. They have gold. They're going to come up with the idea that's going to transform us from the organization we are to the one we envision being way up here. If we round that person off, they'll either leave or they'll join in and drink the Kool-Aid and become just like everybody else in the organization. And we lose that. We never find that gold. And I can illustrate this with this is silly, and I can illustrate through a real situation. Company I consulted with some years ago, I was helping them work on things, and whenever they had a difficult decision to make, they would always say, what would the founder do? In other words, the founder of the company, what would the founder do? The founder had been dead for 5 years. In their culture, the only set of lenses that mattered was the founder's lens. And if you joined that organization, they would rub off all the rough edges of that until you saw everything just the way the founder did. I often wondered if they hired a psychic to actually contact the founder when they were faced with a really big decision. I didn't have the guts to ask the question. Okay. So there's evidence for increased revenues due to innovation, increased profits, reduced costs due to hiring and turnover, and increased ability to attract millennials to the workforce associated with increased diversity in organizations. I have to, since Dr. Musan is here, I'm going to have to say this. These are associative studies. They don't prove that diversity and inclusion cause these things. But the relationship that they uncover is very strong. So I think we can take from this that these are actual associations that matter and associations that we need to keep in mind. So it's important to understand that obtaining positive results from the D&I program is not automatic. Considerable effort is required to transform the organization's culture in order to make a D&I program effective. And from my experience, that's among the most difficult things to do in the whole world, changing an organization's culture. So if you take on the mantle of change manager, recognize that you're taking on quite a challenge. But the greatest satisfaction in life comes from taking on a challenge and successfully dealing with it. So as the business leaders of tomorrow, ask yourself, are you preparing yourself for that challenge?
This mic is on, if you can hear me. And now we have our student body president who has a couple words to share with us. She does amazing work around the campus, and we're happy to have her here today.
Thank you so much. Hello everyone, my name is LaYauna. I'm a student body president, and I'm actually a marketing major. I just really want to point out the fact of what diversity, equity, and inclusion is to me. And specifically, we hear that word a lot. Me being a double minority, it's not all just about skin color and your gender like they mentioned previously. So it really makes me happy seeing different administrators here putting in work, making sure that our voices are heard, making sure if we do have input, that they're inputting it and making sure that they hear us, they see us. And it's really cool that y'all are here. A lot of things when it comes to informational things, students are busy, have other things to do, maybe other distractions to get into. But y'all being here, it shows that y'all care, it shows that y'all want to know what's going on, and that's important. And just remember that nobody knows what to fix if nobody says anything. So if y'all do have any other concerns, we have administrators here, I'm a student body president, we have our caucus chair of the business here, Jared Scott. So it's just really important that y'all are here, y'all speak up. If you see something, say something, because everybody is here to make a difference, and you can be that change too.
Good, thank you, that was amazing. Okay, so I really appreciate that, and she's right. We want to hear from everybody, so just make sure that you share that with your colleagues, your peers, your team members, and so forth. So what I'm going to do is do a quick overview, just so you guys know where we've been and where we're headed. So basically, what is our focus? We want to legitimize the DEI effort on campus, and our dean and our dean's office has been incredibly supportive with that effort. We want to develop and promote conversations about DEI, which is why we launched the survey. We had a really good turnout with that. We want to get buy-in from faculty, staff, and students. So this is something that we can't make happen. It's a community effort. So we all have to work on this if it's something that's important for us to do, and we want to be more comfortable with the uncomfortable in terms of talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Associate Dean Robinson already mentioned our core values. They were posted a while. Our building now, which I think is incredibly important. So we want to make sure we do indeed, as we move forward, remain respectful, focus on quality, be responsive, our individuality, remain honest about how we actually feel. And I really appreciate the comment that he made, that we all want to be able to bring our true selves to work with dignity and respect, and as students, and be received as such. So I think it's important that we can have individuality and honesty at the same time, and that we're not all being forced to be the same rock and not be who we actually are. There's a lot of pressures that we all deal with. So what kind of progress have we made? I just wanted you guys to know that this didn't just kind of come from nowhere. There's been many meetings, many discussions that have happened. We've met with the dean's office, we've met with the chairs, I've spoken with them, student leadership, and the advisory committee, which is the full professors that we have here at COBA advisory group, as I mentioned, that Dr. Sowers is a part of, and I'll let you know about that in a little bit. And then we did our surveys. We did a survey with faculty and staff, and we did a survey with students, because we do want to hear from you. We don't just want to have our opinions on how to move forward, but we want to make sure that it is a collective effort. So we really need everybody to participate in this process. We have so many great student groups, and I just hope everyone is a part of them, and these groups can help refine and help make sure that you're going in the direction that you want to go as a business professional. And so we've reached out to each one of the groups at the undergraduate level, and you also see there that we have the MBA Student Association that's also been invited. So our student survey included both undergraduate and graduate students because of that. But I just want you to know there's so many groups on our campus and so many opportunities to get involved. So let's make sure we're looking into that. Just so you know, I just want to be very transparent in what we're doing. When I met with the stakeholders, these are the questions that we went over to chat with them about, because we want to make sure that we kind of have structured questions that we're asking. I am a human resource professor as well, so that we talk about the validity of unstructured questions, interviews versus structured interviews. So having a set of questions that we ask and discuss is important, especially as we look across the range there. So just so you all know, this is the student town hall, and we are recording it, and it's our hope that we'll put it online, and then we will have one for faculty and staff tomorrow, because again, this is a collective effort. We'll be talking about terms as we go on, but as people communicate, and Dr. Sauer did a great job of talking about this, we say things and I pour meaning into certain things, and I use the word knowing what I believe it means, and then others may hear what I'm saying and pour a total different meaning. What we're trying to do is kind of get more on the same page. So we keep throwing out the term diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I just wanted to make sure we know diversity is the presence of differences in different settings. Equity, everyone has access to the same opportunities. And I really believe that's the case here at Sam Houston. As we go over the survey results, I think we'll see a little bit more of that. And that includes that everyone feels valued and welcome. And what a difference when people do feel welcome and valued where they are. It makes all the difference on people being able to present their best selves and be able to contribute in a positive way. So you've seen this, who's seen this before online? Yeah, I just think that it's a very nice, easy way. We don't have to agree with everything about it, but I think it's a nice, easy way to kind of discuss these terms that are so specific to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So who's on the task force? Myself, Mandy is here, Oscar is in the back there. We have Dr. Strawser, we have Gina, I know she was previously in a meeting, and of course, our student body president. So she is actually on the task force. So I wanted you guys to know that, and she has been representing our students so well and participating, being involved, helping with images and all kinds of stuff. So we want you to know that the students are being heard in this process, and she's doing a great job with that. And then of course, we have Tiffany and Cassy here on the front row who have done an incredible amount of work as well. I want you guys to see here all the organizations that are involved. So when we start talking about doing surveys, all the different things that we're doing, I'll have a meeting with our advisory group, and you can see that Shell, KPMG, Centerpoint, Dell, from Austin, all different individuals who have a relationship with Sam Houston State University agreed to participate. These people are very busy. I used to be a consultant, and I can tell you, like, my bill hour was like, I don't know what it was like $2.50 an hour. And that was when I was a very low-ranking person there, a consultant. What I'm basically saying is here is that their time is very precious and very expensive, but they are taking the time to have conversations about diversity, equity, inclusion for this College of Business. So I really hope that you guys will share the word and know that people are putting in, what do they call it? Sweat equity, and putting in some work here so that we can move positive in a positive way. So these are some of the people on our advisor group. Dr. Sauer here. Gail used to be a advisor for AK Psi here. Jessica Rodriguez, she was in Heritage Magazine. She's right on the page right after our new provost. So she's heavily involved in everything that's going on. Brian Hall just received an award, the Distinguished Alumni Panel. Dr. Goodsell, Mrs. Goodsell and Mrs. Goodwin as well are working on many efforts with us. Yvonne used to work here at Sam Houston State University. That's how I met him. And of course, we know that Mr. Billy Williams is a partner actually at KPMG, and that's just incredible amount of work goes into that. And what do? They help complement and refine ideas. So when I come to them, hey, we're thinking about doing that, this or that, they give us input. So I want you guys to know that we're not just coming at this from an academic perspective, but we were really trying to touch the global world. And as we focus on career readiness, Dr. Robinson has done some incredible work this semester on career readiness with her team. And we want to make sure that we're moving forward in that direction. And this is a part of that. To be working in a global environment, a global economy, we have to make sure that we understand these concepts so we can contribute the way that organizations need us to. So what are some of our initiatives? Who in here is following COBA on Instagram? I mean, everybody should. I mean, this is your college. This is your college. It is what you make it. So it's in our hands. So you should be following. If you're not, I ask that you do it now. Yeah, are you following Sam Houston State University COBA on Twitter? If not, you should. And when you go places, you should be hashtagging. You got to have that conversation going. How many people follow on Twitter? Raise your hand. All right, great. And if not, I encourage you to do so. We have created a COBA_DEI@shsu.edu email address. So if you have any questions at any time, you can reach out to us. And if you are interested at all in being involved in this as a student, make sure you send that email. I do check it, and we'll make sure that we get back to you. And then the hashtags are really important. Whenever you use hashtags, that is a way for you to be able to keep track of the conversation online. So at a COBA level, it is hashtag SHSU COBA, and then we have SHSU COBA DEI, and then at the university level, we ask that you use hashtag SHSU and Bearcats Belong. Janine Bias, who's a very busy lady, actually came to visit with me today, and we talked a little bit about hashtag Bearcats Belong, or just Bearcats Belong, and that is the effort across campus. That is the global effort to make sure that we as Bearcats feel like we belong, that we are welcome, and we are valued here at SM Houston State University. So make sure you're doing a hashtag. That's our YouTube channel. Who watches our YouTube channel? Anybody watch our YouTube? Okay, make sure that you take a look at that. We're going to look at this recording, and we're going to be putting it on, it's my understanding, on our YouTube channel. But we got to use that channel. This is where we're headed. We got to make sure that we're moving forward with the times and that we are continuing in that positive progression. So I think Gina just showed up, and she did a great job with this image here. And I really just wanted you to see that every time you see this fingerprint, that's going to be like how you're going to know that that's our COBA effort. You see our email address there, and I just think that she did an excellent job with that. So that's going to be the way that you know that this is the effort that we're doing in COBA. I want you to know some incredible work is going on. We've only been working together for a few months, but I'm telling you, this team will meet every 2 weeks, and we do a lot of dialogue, have lots of dialogue and conversation. And one of the things that I'm really proud of, especially as we move forward to a Hispanic serving institution, and we're in that process, is the fact that we have the Association of Black Professionals for America student group that we're going to be, it looks like, launching in the spring. It's amazing. And so basically, this chapter offers professional development opportunities, career building, and there's 5 positions, leadership positions, if you're interested or if your friends are interested, because we got to look out for each other. I mean, that's what being a part of a university is all about, and we already have so many people that are interested, is my understanding, that they're having to go through a decision process to decide who will have these positions. And we have such an awesome dean's office that they are sponsoring the cost for those initial five positions. And that may seem to some as not a big deal, but sometimes people say that they're for things, but they don't actually support it or put the income and the finances behind it. But our dean's office is not like that. So we want to make sure that we give them appreciation. So can we do a round of applause? I think that's excellent. People do a lot of talking, but then there's few doers, and so when you have people that are doers, you have to appreciate that. We see that in our personal lives, at work, everywhere. And so we can see that the COBA Alpha chapter is connected with the Alpha Houston, and students should be able to join the spring of 2022, but in that Houston chapter, there's going to be mentoring and networking opportunities. So those are the professionals. So this is really a wonderful opportunity, and I believe anyone can join this group as well. So I want you all to know that we sat down and we talked about what are some of the first things that we want to do in the spring. And in the spring, we're going to be doing some focus on first generation. Have you guys seen the campaign that we have on campus about first generation? If you type that into Sam Houston's website, there's these videos. There's videos and all kinds of wonderful programming that's going on. But we want to do something for COBA. I mean, did you know that 45% of our Sam Houston State University students are first generation? And I stand before you as a first generation college graduate as well. My parents did do some college, but they did not graduate. My parents were married when they were teenagers. My mom was 17 or 18, and my dad was 18 or 19. They were young. They were young people, and they really did a wonderful job for me and my brothers, but they were so proud that each one of us has continued on the process of education and getting our college degree. So for some of us, being a first generation means a lot to our family. It means a lot to the people that look up to us in our family. So we do what we do for ourselves and for those that look up to us and for people that care about us as well. So I want you to know that on February 1st, we're going to be having an event, First Generation, where we're going to be celebrating one another, because that's what this is about. We want to make sure that we value one another and that we understand that we've all come from different places, but we have something similar in mind, and that's being positive for our future. So February 1st at 3:30 in the Haney Auditorium, so we can pull out our phones and put that in the calendar event and begin to share the word about that. We want to use our technology for good, right? Okay, so here we are. I want to thank you, and then we have real quickly here, I have Cassy Henderson, who is an incredible human being and also a wonderful colleague, and we've been working together on the survey results, who Mandy helped us do with the analysis, and so it's been a team effort here. So let me launch this, and I'm going to let Cassy take the lead here.
Okay. Well, thank you again for coming. I'm Dr. Henderson, and I'm going to go over these results. Can you hear me okay? If you want to comment on any of the results, any of the slides, feel free to do that. So let's get started. We had overall 212 participants answer our survey. We kind of broke it down by gender or modality, whether they were online, in person, or a hybrid mix, whether they were undergraduate or graduate, by race, and then if they're a transfer or non-transfer student.
And I think it's interesting to point out that average age was 26 years old, and I think that could be because this data includes both undergraduate and graduate students.
Great, that was interesting. All right, so we just wanted to highlight this question. As a student, I feel valued in COBA. So you can see, as we go from strongly disagree to strongly agree, this would be strongly disagree all the way around to strongly agree, the majority of the responses agree or strongly agree. So that's pretty positive. A couple other questions we've highlighted. Students in COBA fairly consider ideas and suggestions offered by other students.
And just think about that. When you think about your teamwork and your team projects, you know, again, I mentioned this in the Burnout Conference on Friday. One of the easiest ways to bully people is just by ignoring them when they speak. And so for them to say that, you know, I feel like my ideas are heard and considered, then that means that we are acknowledging one another, we're listening to what we have to share, and I think that's incredibly positive for a positive environment, really for psychological safety.
Absolutely. Excellent point. Students also feel like they have a voice within COBA. Students in COBA respect and value others' opinions, so that's along the lines here. But you can see, look, outstanding results. So that says a lot about our college.
Absolutely, and when you say voice as an organizational behaviors, that's really procedural justice. So you believe that there's fairness. When there's voice, you feel like if you say something, it actually matters. And so that's really important in an educational institution.
All right, and then we have, it's kind of hard to see here, but we have a lot of questions down here that we've tried to present all at once. Free from tension. You can see here strongly disagree to agree. So majority agree that we are free from tension. Excellent. Removing bias in the classroom, same pattern, mostly agree. People tend to be stereotyped based on their outward appearance.
So there's a little bit more variance here. So is there anyone that has any thoughts on that? Would anyone like to share on this topic right here? I think this one has a little bit of variance. In COBA, people tend to be stereotyped based on outward appearance, attractiveness, perceived age, attire. What do we think about that? Anyone want to share anything about that?
You know, so that we have some strongly disagree, some are not sure, some strongly agree.
Yes. Let me get you the mic.
Okay, so my first.
Here it is.
Well,
Yes.
interesting. Only thing that I've experienced as far as outward appearance is usually actually positive stereotypes. Like, I've had someone actually tell me at my job once, because I work at the ASC, they told me, oh, well, you look like a supply chain major. You don't look like a marketing person. It's like, I don't know what a marketing person looks like, but thank you. But I've never faced any type of negative aggression.
Gotcha.
I've always faced generally either positive or just neutral, usually. Or people saying I'm around the COBA building too much, but.
Okay. Well, that's a good thing, yes. Okay. And then we can see here, I have personally witnessed discrimination at COBA. You see a very large majority say that they strongly disagree with that. The last one, COBA is willing to address student concern. Overwhelmingly, students feel like that's the case. Yes.
Yes, in relation to the stereotype and appearance, I feel like that's just a general thing, just towards people. A lot of people kind of have stereotypes in terms of there are occasions where you are supposed to dress a certain type of way, things like that. So I feel like this one is, like in COBA, it's like a general thing. I feel like it kind of is for just people in general. So it does, even like me personally, genuinely, I do stereotype still. It's like if you see someone, you automatically kind of have a perception from it, which I'm trying to change and things like that, honestly, because that's just how we grew up. It's like, you dress here, you dress like this, you dress like this. So I think that's a great question and a great point.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and then just some more general questions about feeling, and this is the same question, feeling value. Feel welcome to express my true feelings. I can be true to myself. My experience at COBA has had a positive influence on my academic growth. Look at these results, very high, strongly agree, so this is excellent. In general, I'm treated fairly and equitably at COBA, also very high. I have found one or more communities or groups where I feel like I belong within COBA. So it's not as high, and you'll notice that the in-person and white and undergraduate are the highest in that. And then here, I have considered leaving COBA because I felt isolated or unwelcome. This is very low, wonderfully.
Yeah, that's good information. And so I want to talk about the third one real quick. I can be true to myself. Have you all ever had to go somewhere and pretend like you just couldn't be yourself, so it was like all pretending? Well, whenever you do that, it's incredibly stressful and it weighs on you over time. So the mere fact that our students feel like they can be their true selves in COBA, I think is incredibly positive.
All right, so this next set of questions is related to DEI. So we're in general agreement that diversity in COBA improves experiences, interactions within the classroom, workplace, and overall. Fantastic. COBA supports DEI efforts. COBA leadership are willing to embrace and promote DEI. Professors and instructors are willing to embrace and promote DEI. Staff are willing to embrace and promote DEI. And then students believe that they receive an appropriate amount of information from COBA about DEI efforts. Also very strong. I'm offered an appropriate amount of business workshops and sessions related to DEI within COBA. COBA students are properly informed about DEI terms and concepts, and the curriculum addresses DEI in the appropriate number of classes.
And so what I think we can say here is that the average is about 2.5, and you can see that everything is way above that. So overall, it seems that our students are having a positive experience in this regard from their perception.
So we're doing a great job. Can we do better? Of course.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, communications and engagements. Communication from the College of Business is sufficient. COBA is sufficiently active on social media. Providing network opportunities across business majors and colleges. Providing appropriate networking. Did I have that twice? Let's skip that. As a whole, COBA capitalizes on important business trends. Great feedback there. Students have the same opportunities to engage, online students have the same opportunities to engage with COBA community as the face-to-face students.
Now let's think about that for a second. Do we think that's the case? Do we feel like our online students have just as much opportunity to engage as our face-to-face students? Any thoughts on that? How do you were shaking your head. Do you have any comments about that? Can you share the microphone?
I think even with going back to fully in person, there's a lot of Zoom options for everything. And then a lot of things are recorded and posted on the YouTube channel if they are Zoom options. So if a student can't make a Zoom time, if they really did want to attend the event or be a part of it, they can find it online. So there is access.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I thought that last one was interesting. The Smith-Hudson building has appropriate physical accessibility because we want to make sure that our building is accessible to everyone. Do we feel like our building is easily accessible? Does everybody feel that way?
The elevator, it's just slow sometimes.
Okay, yeah.
It's starting to close on us.
Yeah, they're saying the elevator is slow and tries to close on you, yes. Go next slide.
All right, so I just wanted to bring this question up so you remember, those of you that completed the survey, what the question was. So this was the question. And so you were to choose between whether you feel like, based on your direct experiences, how would you rate the College of Business? So is it hostile or friendly, racist, non-racist, etc. So the closer you are to either side indicates your feelings. So as we see here, this again is undergraduate, graduate, in-person, etc. And you notice that we have a high average over here towards this side. So that indicates that, in general, their experiences have been more friendly than hostile. The experiences have been more non-racist than racist, more diverse than homogeneous, more respectful, etc.
Yeah, I do think that one thing that we as we said, that the results for the student survey are overwhelmingly positive, but we do see that green line there for our non-white students is a little bit lower on their perceptions with regards to diversity, a little bit lower with respect to respectfulness and non-sexist. So we might need to dig a little bit more into the data on that. But it is important to point that out. But overall, the responses are very positive. And it's interesting, you see the in-person there, the darker blue in the middle, it's a little bit lower on diversity, it's a little bit lower on non-sexist as well. So that's something else that we should probably go. And then non-racist is a little bit lower. It's actually the lowest for our in-person students. So that's interesting as well.
And then the same, here's the last set of those questions. And again, we have the same similar pattern, non-white being a little bit on the lower end, but also we have hybrid in some instances being on the lower end. So I guess with regard to cooperative versus competitive. I don't know that necessarily this is a bad thing to be more cooperative than competitive. I think there should be a healthy balance.
Yeah, especially in business college.
All right. And then we asked, how comfortable were you answering these DEI questions? How comfortable are you discussing your views on DEI? And these are the results. So So you can see here that many, or very few rather, felt extremely uncomfortable. Most felt comfortable or fairly comfortable. Same thing with this question here. So that's really good news. That's exciting to hear that students are willing to share their views, willing to have a conversation about it. That's what we need to move forward.
Absolutely, that's one of our outcome variables when you look at, remember at the very beginning when I talked about the focus, one of them is to have more comfort level in discussing DEI terms and concepts and challenges. So this is one of the most important questions that we had because we're not trying to make sure everyone thinks the same, we just want to make sure that we're comfortable in being who we are and having those challenging conversations. That's it. That is our presentation. And I just wanted to know if anyone has any comments. Anybody have any comments? Before we get to our comments, we have Kaylee James here, who is our DEI student worker who does incredible work, and she is on top of it, getting a lot of good data for us. We want to thank her for what she's doing. But does anybody have any questions about anything or any comments about diversity, equity, inclusion here in COBA? Anything that anybody?
Anything you were expecting or wanted to hear that we missed that you'd like to discuss? You're welcome.
Let me ask you this question. If you were to say, man, we have a successful diversity, equity, and inclusion program here in COBA, what would that look like? If our program was successful in your eyes, what would you see for you to feel that way? Is there anything that you can think of? Not sure yet. We're still thinking about that.
You can bring the mic to me. You don't have to like stand up or anything.
No. Anyone else have anything on that? Is there a program that you would like to see? Is there anything that you feel like we need to be talking about that we haven't talked about so far? Okay, Dr. Robinson has her hand up.
Just because everyone is so talkative, I just throw one more question. Did you learn something today? Raise your hand if you learned something today. Okay, that looks unanimous. So
Yes.
Wonderful job to this entire group. Enjoyed it.
Thank you.
I would like to present each and every one of you a challenge. First of all, thank you for being here. That's a great first step. As we move forward with programs, I want to challenge everyone here to not only come and attend the next event, but bring 2 to 5 of your friends with you. Raising awareness is a great first step. Let's work together towards that end.
Okay, anything else before we wrap this up? I know we can all smell the pizza. All right, well, thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you so much.